So let me, gosh, I love this area because when I finally saw this, everything changed for me. The way I say it is where you look is where you go. Now, it's said in so many ways, thoughts become things. One of the earliest ways I saw it written was, as you conceive and believe, you achieve. Not too long ago, the law of attraction got a lot of attention. It's the same idea. You create your result by what you focus on. So all those are saying essentially the same thing. The way I say it is where I look is where I go. In other words, my focus, I end up what I'm focusing on. That becomes what I call reality. And very literally, it happens like that, and it happens metaphysically. So, I learned this metaphysically, but now the quantum physicists have now got proof, if you want that kind of stuff. So, for example, when I was about 20, well, it started before that, but I was in a band. And I dropped out of college, and there were 4 of us, and we started traveling the world. And we did pretty well pretty quickly, made an album, performed with top people. It just kind of happened quickly. And we were just young kids having fun. We never thought of a career or anything. Well, we were invited to participate in a, what do they call it? Like someone wants to make a TV series, the pilot. We were invited to participate in a pilot film. For a producer had an idea for a weekly TV show. And they were filming in Springfield, Missouri, I remember. And part of what they were filming took place on a stage in a theater. And so this was a big deal. Like if this series got sold and we're principals in it, off we go, stardom, And so I really wanted to, do the best we could. And we were staying in a hotel about a half a block down the street from the theater where they were filming. And I remember walking down the street, going into the theater probably an hour and a half early before anybody else got there. And we had 2 guitars, a bass, and a banjo. And I was the close tolerant guy in the group in some regards. I wasn't necessarily the best musician by a long ways, but anyway, so I got the guitars and banjo. I went into the stage, and there was a big concert piano up there. And I sat down at the piano to tune the instruments. So I picked up my banjo and, hit note on the piano and matched it with a string on the banjo, finished tuning my banjo, and I put it on a stand next to me. Then I picked up a guitar, and I went through the same process. Hit the note, tune the string to match it. And I got to the 3rd string on the guitar, which is G. Hit G on the piano, and the G in my banjo sounded. And there's nobody else there. I'm alone. I look around, kind of freaked me. What? I hit the G on the piano, and the G on my banjo sounded again. Nobody around. That's weird. So I moved the banjo a little further away, like maybe 6 feet. G on the piano, the banjo sounded again. And I kept moving it farther and farther away, and I don't know how far away I got, maybe 12 feet. I hit G on the piano, and I could still hear the banjo sounding. And I thought, boy, that's weird. Well, I found out that's called sympathetic vibration. And anything that has a G in it is going to resonate. When G sounds, anything with G is going to resonate in kind. It's going to sympathetically vibrate. So that wasn't just tuning musical instruments. It was like a huge aha. It's when I say a word, the tone of my voice, the emotion I have, it's got a vibration. And it's going to create a response that's the same out there. So if I'm angry, if I speak with an angry voice, and it could be unconscious, anger is going to reflect back to me. And I'm going to see the world as angry, But I created that. Literally, I created it. Now, so I can go for hours on this. It's like if I put red glasses on, I look out, the world's got a red tint to it. Take those off, put blue on, it's got a blue tint. Well, our belief system is the filter we look at the world through. So if I believe that it's a cutthroat world and dog eat dog and, it's competitive and I better gotta get mine before they get me, that's the world I'm gonna live in. If I believe it's a peaceful world and people are kind and giving, that's going to be my world. They both coexist out there. Like we've got wars going on constantly. And we've also got, charities happening and people serving and kind people and people laughing at a comedian and watching a good stage play and, a football game. I mean, look at all these things that are all out there right now. Which one am I involved in? And it's my choice. And so the most influential part of that to me is the belief system. And beliefs are not necessarily true, and they can be changed. But if I say to people, if I say to you, tell me your belief system, you'd come up with a few things, but it wouldn't be a long list, and you probably aren't even aware of your beliefs. Because most people's beliefs are not my beliefs are. The beliefs show up in things like, can, can't, always, never, good, bad, should, shouldn't. Those are beliefs. And they're not necessarily true. And yet that's the filter we look at the world through. That's the result we create. And it's just like that sympathetic vibration. It's a vibration we put out, and like attracts like. That's a spiritual law. Like attracts like. Birds of a feather flock together. I mean, there's a palm tree down here that's got about 200 green parrots living in it. And I go out and run through this neighborhood, and the only place I see those green parrots is in that palm tree, and there's no crows in that palm tree. They're over down here in this maple tree. Like attracts like. It's part of nature. So if I've got angry thoughts inside of me, or if I'm afraid of the world, it's going to be a scary world. Very literally. So the quantum physicists, one of the things they discovered is, and have proof for now, the experimenter influences the experiment. The observer affects what they're observing, right? So I don't need the scientific proof. I just want to know what works and what doesn't, and because science always changes. They say, oh, that's scientific. Well, what is it? Galilean science, Newtonian frame of reference, quantum physicists, Einstein. I mean, every one of those has changed the one that was previous. What's next? And not that they're not functional and usable. It's just, it's not immutable. It changes. Everything changes. You can count on it. I mean, nothing. My grandmother used to say, nothing's so constant as change. Well, that's true. Constantly changing, Now, that doesn't mean, don't work with the way it is now or learn how it functions. It's a good thing I learned about gravity or, some of the laws of physics that happen to work the way they work, because I can function within it. And most of that is the current belief. And beliefs are not necessarily true. Now some are, but the thing that I enjoyed the most that I did, and I think did the most good, was I developed a 3-month leadership training. And we met once a week, once a month for 3 months, and then we had meetings every week in between, hourly meetings. And one of the things I was working with was this. I wanted to demonstrate, my thing is experiential learning, not just theory and concept. It's not just read this or listen to that, it's learn by doing something. I was looking for a way to experientially demonstrate that beliefs are not necessarily true. And I didn't have a great way to do it. I had a couple ideas. And about 2 weeks before I did the first one of these trainings, a guy came into my office, 19, 20-year-old kid, wildly enthusiastic and saying, I can show people how to walk on fire. And I understand you're doing seminars. I'd like to work with you in that. Can I do this? Can I do this in one of your seminars? And I said, well, tell me about it. So he told me, I said, have you ever done it before? I did it once. Anybody get hurt? Nobody got hurt. Tell me a little bit about how it works. And I had just recently gotten certified in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, by John Grinder, the developer of it. Well, this young kid in my office was Tony Robbins. Don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, but he got his first attention by doing firewalks. So he did his first firewalks in my leadership training. And the only reason I did it, I mean, he does it, he calls it power indus. It's all about power. I didn't care about power. I just saw that as a great way to demonstrate that beliefs are not necessarily true. 2,000 degree temperature, that melts, iron gets malleable at that temperature, skin burns. You know, you walk on 2,000 degree coals, you ought to burn. And, you know, so I said, well, okay, let's, you know, I'll be the first one to go. There's going to be 55 people in the group. If I burn, nobody else goes, you know. And if I make it, anybody else who wants to can give it a go. So we did it. Nobody burned. You know, powerful way to demonstrate that beliefs are not necessary. So what other beliefs do I have that aren't necessarily true? You know? I've gotten some attention because for some things, but I was paralyzed. I couldn't move from my waist down. I couldn't move my legs. I had two orthopedic surgeons tell me I'd never walk again. One of them said, you need surgery or it may spread through more of your body. And my only thought was, well, then you can't help me. And I'll shorten the whole story. The bottom line, I healed myself. Now, see, here's two experts, both telling me, you know, that you're not going to walk again. That was their belief. I didn't believe it. And and I healed myself. So how did I do that? Well, the first step was I had a different belief. I just somehow thought it's possible. I'm going to find out how. And I found out how, and it wasn't with, you know, surgery or chemicals or pills or anything. You know, there's other ways. So I found other ways, and then I found out nothing special about me. I met other people who'd done that and even more dramatic. And the body knows how to heal itself, and there's some people who know how to support that process, and they're out there, you know, and it's a group of people who has a different belief system, you know. It's like walking on fire or whatever. So, you know, I forgot what the prompt was, but that where you look is where you go. That's the most practical thing I know in terms of getting what you want. Focus on what you want more of, not what you don't want. You know, it is so practical. Let me give you another. This is so important to me. I wish I would have learned this so much earlier. Another example. I was working with a big international company, manufacturing, and I was working with their leadership team. I know how to get groups of people working functionally together and harmoniously and getting a result and such. And they liked what I was doing. And I was working with the senior management of this company. And one of them at one point said, you know, we've got a real problem in one of our factories with safety. We've had a couple of people die. We've had some serious injuries. We've brought in safety experts. We've redesigned the assembly line, and we're still having a problem. You know, do you ever work with that? And I said, not specifically like that. It's like you wouldn't call me a safety consultant, but I'll bet I can help with the issue. And he said, well, you know, so they took me out to the factory. And I knew immediately what the issue was, immediately. So it's this great big campus, landscape grounds, lawns, manicured trees, beautiful property. You know, before we got to the office buildings, we went through the gated entrance. You had to go through a gate, you know, and be allowed in. And then the first thing I see after going, and you know, we wind down this road through the beautiful landscape grounds, and oh gosh, 50 yards from the gate, there's this great big sign, like a billboard, and it says, X days since an accident, something like that. And the X, the number, had these little cards, you know, you could put the number on. So it'd be, you know, 50 days, and tomorrow they'd put 51 days, and the next day you'd put the 52 days. I got that far, and I said, I get your problem. And he said, what do you mean? You haven't even seen the factory yet. And I said, I don't need to see the factory. And he said, well, why not? And I said, I'll show you later. Let's go see the factory. So we go in, he shows me the factory. I talked to a few people. And I saw instantly the problem. What's the problem? Where you look is where you go. Where were they looking? Accident. The sign says accident. You know, it's the best way I found to describe it is most parents have had this experience. They say to their kid, don't spill the milk. And what happens? The milk spills. Almost every parent has had that experience. Why did that happen? Is it because the kid's uncoordinated or clumsy or disobedient or, or rebellious or something? No. It's the parent hasn't learned yet how to give a good instruction. Where you look is where you go. What have they created? An image of spilled milk. This is all unconscious. People don't know they're doing this, but they got the image of spilled milk, and that's what happens. That's what manifests. So I see this factory where their focus, everybody who goes to work every day, the first thing they see is accident, and where you look is where you go. Now it's unconscious. They don't think they're doing it. They don't want to do it. So all we did was, what do you want? Not what don't you want. What do you want? And I spent some time, it was a weekend, what is it you want more of? How are you going to define that? How do you measure it? How do you language it? And so, we worked with that. So now their sign says what they want more of, safety or whatever. I don't even remember the words they came up with, but it didn't have accident in it, didn't have death in it, didn't have injury. And that was probably 6-7 years ago, and last I heard from it was about 2 years ago, but 3 years later, no accidents. I was just in a Whole Foods on Montana Avenue, and I took a picture of this. The bathroom is, you got to go through a storage room, like the back room where the stock comes before they put it out on the shelves. So, and it's open to the customers. So I went through these swinging doors and someone's in the bathroom, so I'm there waiting for them to come out so I can go in. And on the wall next to the bathroom is exactly that sign, about how many days without an accident. And I took a picture of it. And someday I'm going to go meet the managing director or the president of Whole Foods. And I'm going to show them why this is a problem. There's a football team I did a little work with. They were a championship team, but they had a couple problems with turnovers, fumbles, and penalties. And everything else they were doing beautifully. They were like in the top 10 or 5 in the country in most measurements, except for this level, they're down like 110th. Why? All I had to do is look at the motivation signs they've got in their training facilities. It's the same thing. It's so simple, but most people don't know it. So where you look is where you go.